But I'm so glad that you're here today. It's so great to see all of your faces. Thank you. From the back. That's all right. I knew it wasn't you, Val Jean. She's pointing over at him like, I didn't say that. I'm like, I know. A couple of weeks ago, Pastor Tracy gave us an incredible sermon on expansion through power, how the inward work precedes the outward, and the call to excavate the catacombs of our lives in this world to discover what's really there. It was so good. If you didn't listen to it, go back and rewind and watch that, because it was so good. I think it was one of my favorite sermons you ever did. You're welcome. Because I'm talking to you directly. And it was just so good. It encouraged me so much because I was just feeling like, how do you make a difference? Like, if you watch, I'm trying not to swear today because I do swear a lot. But I know, Janice. Protect Janice's ears. But if I do swear, just know it was important. Like it was for emphasis. If this is your first time back here, then know that we are a loving place, and you're safe here. So, I think in this world there can be so much stuff that's going on. You're just like, how do we even make a difference, right? Like, I mean, you can shout into the void, right? That is social media. And sometimes that feels good and it can help. But like, how do we really make a difference? And that sermon, I don't know why, it just gave me a lot of hope of how to make a difference and how to be being a part of the world and being a part of other people. So, and then last week, because of the snow, I was sent home, and I made the decision to go home as well, to be safe from the snow that came 7 hours later. But instead, we got the gift of Pastor Tracy sharing about the paradigm for the year that we're talking about in all of our leadership and elder meetings, which is about the 3 boxes. And if you can listen to that one again, that was so good too. Oh my gosh, the reflections for life and for the church, such an incredible paradigm for transformation and how to live life so that you're not just stuck in this one place. Anybody ever get stuck and be like, how did I get here and why am I not moving? It's like such a terrible feeling. And that was so helpful for that too. So listen to that. Okay, my promos for past sermons are over. And today we're back in Acts, and we're diving deeper into the first church as it was formed. I feel like this is really far up, and I have to look really far to see you. Here. Can you still see me on the camera? Okay. A couple weeks ago when I was here for the leadership retreat, I was having a conversation with Terry, and I was lamenting over some things that were happening politically. I'll spare you the details. But I was lamenting over some things that were happening politically. And she, in her wisdom, was like, the only way I think that we're ever really fully going to get back is to form like real, authentic connections together. And to come back together as people, like face to face, and really see one another again. And I think that's how it all started in Acts 2. That's how the early church was at first. But something happened, and I'll tell you about it. Mother Teresa once said, "If we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other." When I look at the world today, I see a lot of no peace. And I see it in the divides, I see it in the wars, I see it in the prejudices, the bigotry, the hatred, the fear. And I think about it in that way of like, wow, there's no peace. There's no shalom. There's no witness. Peace, shalom, means to put back together again all the pieces that were broken apart. And when I look at the world, I see all the broken pieces. And I think what the early church did was they found a way to look at each other with all of their different pieces. And they looked at each other and they said, I belong to you. And you belong to me. Here's the problem, guys. I'm going to start crying already. I didn't even read the text. When we forget I feel so grieved for our world today, and especially for the Christian church. But I do feel so encouraged by Cornerstone and by what we got going on here. So let's dig in. I don't want to get too emotional yet. Acts 2:42 through 47, if you'd like to read along, or I'll have it up on the projectors. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to the prayers. And all came upon everyone because many wonders and signs were being done by the apostles. All who believed were together, and they had all things in common. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute the proceeds to all as they had need. Day by day, as they spent much time together in the temple, they broke bread at home and ate their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having the good will of all people. And day by day, the Lord added to their number those who were being saved. Imagine that scene for a minute. So we had Pentecost that we talked about a couple weeks ago, where God's fire and spirit fell on all these people, and they all believed. There was like 3,000 of them. And 120 of them started, but they added 3,000. And then from that place, homes were full of people, bread was being broken, resources were being shared, strangers became family. There was no big buildings, no institutions, just people learning to follow Jesus together. And there are certain moments in history when something shifts, not just politically, not just culturally, but spiritually. And Acts 2 is one of those moments where that spirit fell like fire and where fear dissolved in a moment and wonder for God broke open. But here's the thing. What happens after those power moments? Have you ever had one of those powerful moments in church where something like really significantly happens to you and you're emotional maybe, you're crying, or you feel like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. I had a breakthrough at the altar. And then what happens? You go home, you wake up, and you go to work, and it becomes Monday. And then real life hits. And how do you live that out in like real life? Because those moments are so great. That fiery, passionate moment that we celebrate as Pentecost was so great. But it wasn't enough. There has to be more. And it's easy sometimes to have a powerful spiritual moment that we can live in, but it's harder to live shared life. Luke says they devoted themselves. And I think that devotion is the key here. That inward, that outward that Pastor Tracy was talking about. And here's the thing, right? Acts 2 doesn't show us a growth strategy. It shows us a way to live together after we have a spiritual experience with God. What we don't see after 3,000 people respond, we don't see big brandings, buildings, hierarchies, mega churches, smoke machines, right? They didn't like instantly go and start like, okay, we have to build this church and we have to do this and it has to be these rules and everybody has to follow this. They're like, no, let's pray, let's eat, and let's give to people who are in need, and let's sell everything so we can help everybody out. Like simple. So what happened? So they were like, okay, we have to like, and that Greek word there is devoted. I think it's up there next. They had this like steadfast, stubborn commitment to each other. Not to some sort of ritual or formation or hierarchy, but they were in it. They were all in for each other. It wasn't just this kind of like, oh yeah, here or there, I'll show up, I'll give whatever, I'll do whatever. They intentionally got together as if their lives depended on it, because it was everything they knew now. They just wanted to be together. And they did this next. They just took care of their mind. They focused on teaching and study. They shared life. They were inclusive. They had that koinonia fellowship. And then they broke bread. They had that communion. They remembered Christ together. They shared meals. And they prayed together. And when Luke says koinonia, he's not talking like, oh, they liked each other. He's talking about shared resources, shared responsibility, shared vulnerability, and shared mission. Koinonia essentially says, your flourishing is tied to mine. So when I see in culture today, the discarding of people in the name of Christian, in the name of Christ, when I see the discarding of an immigrant, when I see the discarding of a trans person, when I see the closure of food pantries, I'm like, what the heck is going on? Under the guise of we're a Christian nation. I call BS. See how I censored BS? Thank you. Like, is it BS or what? I mean, if you're for that, we love you and we're here, we're all growing together. I know we have a community that is a diverse community here. But I'm calling out things in allegiance to Christ, not in allegiance to left and right. Because this is not, we don't do left and right in here. We came here because we're for Christ, right? That's what it's about. That's the measure. The measure is if it's democratic or not, or if it's liberal enough, or if it's conservative enough. The measure is, does it line up with the highest call of love that we see in the Bible through Christ? Because that's way higher. That's way higher than anything we could surmise of a spectrum of left and right. But we're getting duped, guys. I'm so upset about all this stuff, so I'm not upset with you guys. And it says, this Greek phrase, it says epitiauto, that they moved together towards the same thing. They had unity as a shared direction towards love. And from that formation came unity. Not uniformity, but unity. Not thinking always the same thing about everything, but moving toward a similar mission of love. Just to give you some context, okay, all these 3,000 people that came together, the majority of them that we know of were Jewish pilgrims from across the Roman land. They spoke different languages. They had different regional cultures, different instincts about empire and law. So basically, they had all different kinds of differences. And back then, there was a lot of differences. They were all believing and coming from different things. But somehow, when God's Spirit fell in them, they ran together towards a shared mission. Somehow, they opened their homes up and had dinner and broke bread and remembered Christ. They didn't erase their differences, but the resurrection they experienced reordered their allegiance. And that matters to us. That matters to me, because when I look around, the landscape of the Christian church can often feel so bleak. Because today, political identities have become so central that they eclipse the identity of Christ. That unity is shared direction towards love. And we can lose that so easily by the differences that we see in one another. Political identities are shouting in every forum and ripping our families and our country to shreds. And the church has been one of the biggest perpetrators of it all. And I want to just speak to something quickly. And I'm proud to say that I don't believe Cornerstone as a whole participates this at all. But Christian nationalism confuses allegiance. It fuses faith with cultural dominance. It takes power and calls it the gospel. And a lot of times it is explicitly tied to white supremacy. So much so that a group called Christians Against Christian Nationalism calls it white Christian nationalism, because it seeks to lord over the other instead of get lower with and become one with, like Christ taught us. But Acts 2 confronts every attempt to merge the kingdom of God with the kingdoms of this world. The early church is born under empire. Rome was militarized. It was nationalistic, powerful. But when the Spirit fell, the church didn't initially wrap itself in political power. It wraps itself around a table. Jesus is executed by empire, not enthroned by it. So if you're wondering, how did the church drift so far from the picture we see in Acts 2? Well, for the first 300 years after this beautiful eating, drinking, praying together, helping everybody in need, I'm not going to give you like a full historian lesson, but you can look there as well. Constantine came into play. So from the original church, it was house churches, shared tables. There was no political power. But there was a lot of persecution, and people hated Christians. They had to kind of be underground, do the half of the Jesus fish, things like that. Have you ever heard that story? So there wasn't a lot of protection for Christians in this newfound movement. But it was initially a movement. It wasn't a system. But then Constantine made an edict which legalized Christianity in 313. And what happened when he did this was that the church then married with institution and political power. And from that point, throughout history, we see the wrestle we see today. The Christian nationalism we see today is not new. We just see it in full bloom. And we see it on our threads, and we're like, ooh, that's not what I feel at Cornerstone. Well, I hope you don't feel it here. If you do, then talk to us. And you're like looking around, but this is not new. This has always been what systems of power tried to do to the organic love movement of Christ and Christ's people once it came under the political power of protection. Then, from the margins to the empires, from the tables to the temples, from movements to institutions. We started as small communities with shared tables, no political power. We cared for one another, we shared resources, we lived differently. And the tension that we live with today is that when the church gets too close to power, we lose something. When the church stays close to community, we flourish. And the early church didn't expand through control. Initially, it expanded. The Lord added to their number daily because of that spirit that rested upon them. Because they said, come and eat with me. Come and pray with me. Are you in need? Here's the shirt off my back. They made it really simple, and we make it really complicated. it said they sold possessions and distributed to all as they had any need. That word was the Greek word chreia, essential lack. Not by party affiliation, not by cultural sameness, not by whiteness, not by moral scoring, but just by need. So who are we in today's society as the church to not care for the foreigner? To deem someone's background or to deem someone's sexuality or to deem someone's anything not a part of, not deserving and worthy of care. If our faith protects power but neglects the vulnerable, we have lost the plot. If our allegiance to nation and country outruns our allegiance to Christ, we lose the meeting together. We lose the heart that captured people at first. And this is a critique for all of us. For some who are more progressive, our outrage is not enough. Shouting into voids of social media only does so much. But justice must become embodied generosity and engagement. And thank you to those who embody this in our congregation so deeply. You give me hope for the Christian church. You do. Can you look at somebody next to you and say, you give me hope for the, I don't know. You give me hope for the Christian church. You give me hope for what it means to be a Christian in 2026. Because I'll tell you, there's not much when I look around. But when I look at you guys, I'm like, all right, we're going to be okay. For conservatives, it means order cannot override compassion, and traditions cannot silence mercy. And purity culture, I'm trying to be careful with this one here. Purity culture cannot be a veneer for cover-up culture. I don't have it written down. No, seriously though, purity culture cannot be a veneer for cover-up culture. Because you know what happens when all we do is you tell people, this is what you can't do, this is what you can't be, this is what you can't be. Nobody wants to come to your house for dinner. Nobody wants to pray with you. Nobody wants your charity if you don't accept them. Right? Like it just falls apart. And for anyone who still may be tempted by nationalist Christianity, it means remembering that the church's calling is not to dominate culture, but it is to embody the Spirit of Christ. Teresa of Avila says, Christ has no body now but you. You are Christ's body. You are Christ's body. Yeah, right? Amen. You know, and isn't that what Jesus did on earth? Like, he walked around and he called people up to a higher level of living in life while he ate and drank and met them where they were. He prayed with them. He reached down. He distracted the religious to save the hungry. that's the kind of person I want to be. Because I think that unfortunately, throughout history, barriers have been created by systems, by oppression, by institutions that try and contain the faith journey. And I don't want there to be any barrier between any person that I ever meet for them to have an encounter with Christ. And I'm constantly checking myself. I don't want there to be any barrier because that is the most important thing for me in my whole life. And whenever I hear somebody tell me about a barrier, I'm like, the hell with that, the heck with that, right? I can say hell because it's technically in the Bible. It's technically not. I mean, I won't get into hell about that. Here's one of my favorite parts of this whole scripture. It says that all came upon everyone, that they had reverent wonder. They weren't impressed with themselves, but they had this like grand awareness of like, oh my gosh, this is like God. And when God comes on the scene, we can come together. So I wonder what it looks like to work harder. I don't usually say that, but work harder at becoming more in awe of God than being so in awe. And that word in awe, like reverent or constantly focusing on, like looking at and being devoted to and having reverential fear. I think a lot of times it's easy for our eyes and our gaze and for our awe to be on all the terrible things instead of to be on the greatest God who helps us. And then it says this, they ate with glad and generous hearts. And that Greek word there says, I'm not going to actually say it because I should know how to say it better, but I don't. It says that they ate with simplicity of heart. But what it actually means, the Greek there, is it's without stone. And here's why I feel like this is so significant. Have you ever felt, based on what was going on in the world or in your life, that your heart kind of has turned to stone? Kind of like a hardness of heart, right? And when your heart is hard, or when my heart is hard, the last thing I want to do is be open to you. Because I'm like, nah, I'm guarded, right? But it says that they ate with glad and generous hearts, but that is so watered down to they shared meals together. They shared life together with soft hearts. Despite everything going on in the world, despite their differences, they found a way to soften their hearts. They didn't have any hidden agenda, and they didn't have a hidden agenda. There was no performative acts of looking the part to try and be religious people or try and get people saved and give people a list of things they needed to do to be a part of the cool group that ate and prayed together. Their hearts were just soft. And here's the thing, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Being a person, and I know this has been going on throughout history, but this is the time in history that I'm living in. Being a person who's witnessed and who is a part of what's going on in our current events has caused my heart to grow so cold. And I can see it. And just give me a crane if you need to take me down for what I'm about to say. But this is my personal story, okay? These may not reflect the views of Cornerstone. Okay? I hate what has happened to my heart. I used to be so naive. And I used to love people so freely. And I kind of prided myself on that I could really love people. And, but I hate what has happened. And I know we all represent different political backgrounds in here, but I'm sharing my personal story. I'm going to get to it. I'm just nervous. I hate what has happened when I come across somebody who I know has repeatedly voted for Donald Trump. I hate what has happened to my heart when I look at them. And you may be in here, and I do love you. But on my personal accountability, I hate what has happened. Because I think that it's robbed us of the call that I took at first when I said, I want to follow you, Jesus. I never wanted I never thought that I think it's a great opportunity to practice what we preach. But it's really hard. But when I read about the first church, I'm like, okay, these people were really different. There was MAGAs, and there was fascists, and all the big bad words. But somehow they figured it out. Now, it got really messy later on. Somebody else is going to preach about that. They were lying and killing each other. There was all kinds of weird stuff. Like, they're just like us. But the point is, I feel grieved. I feel grieved. I feel grieved that it's happening. And granted, I think that a lot of the stuff is really, really wrong and hurting people significantly that I love. And also, there's people who vote or do different things that I really, really love. But have you noticed that? How the lens just slowly changes once you find out something about somebody? And you're like, oh, you're this kind of person. And your heart, what happens to your heart? Stone. And I just think that there's a better way. And I hate having that hate in my heart. But I hate what they're doing to people. But in the end, what's happening is, and this is just me, I mean, it could be a conspiracy theory, is that what happens is like all the things at the top, they send these stories out to us, and they're just living some life up here, like the Hunger Games, and we're down here hating each other, and fighting and ripping apart. Meanwhile, this orbit just continues to keep going. But down here, we're ripped to shreds. And we've got hearts of stone. And I don't really know how to fix it. But what I do know is that I want to have a soft heart. And I want to see a love revolution. I want to see us go back to the movement that started at first, where we could invite into each other's houses, where we could forgive, where we could find a way to see each other, where we could realize that our trans friends are not evil and don't need fixed and don't need ripped away. Where we could realize that those in black and brown bodies are just as valuable as everyone else. Where we could realize that shared resources actually does work. And it doesn't have to be some weird socialism thing where just weird. So here's the thing, guys. I'm going to wrap it up. The early church didn't win culture wars. They became community. And because of that, the people experienced ongoing restoration. People being drawn together, healed together in life. Hang on. Oh, I thought I turned it off. In our polarized age, the church does not need to mirror the battlefield. And I think at Cornerstone, we do a pretty good job of this. And I'm really proud of us. But we need to continue to build tables and add chairs to our tables. And unity does not mean silence about injustice. It means our center is deeper than our camps. We can hold conviction without losing compassion, and we can set boundaries without surrendering our humanity. We can try and learn to live together as brothers and sisters and children. So when I look at Cornerstone and I think about the early church and what they did, I was going down all those things. Can you put up that slide again of the 4 things that they did together? It's back. No. Yes, thank you. They taught together. We're teaching here together. They shared life together. I love when I see you guys going out together and spending time and inviting each other to your homes, or meeting together for lunches, or having a dinner here. I think there's a breakfast here, right? Lunch. They broke bread. We're going to have communion together today. We're going to remember together what unifies us in the midst of all the differences across this, that we belong here together. We belong to each other because of Christ. And that anything else is less than. And they prayed together. We gather together and we pray. So what in your own life, ask yourselves these questions. What are you devoted to? Who shares your table? Is there any need among you? How is your heart? Is it full of stone? Is it hardened? And are we moving together towards love? Again, Mother Teresa said, if we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. If we want to continue to expand, let us continue with the devotion. If we want unity, we have to find that shared direction towards love. And if we want credibility, we loosen our grips. If we want to find joy together, we soften our hearts. Expansion that we talk about in this church now for this year is not manufactured. There's no formula to it. But it's an invitation to authentic living and trying to continue to be love and be Christ in this world when it becomes increasingly difficult. Acts 2 is not just some nostalgic fairy tale thing we look to, but it can be our blueprint, the simple thing that we come back to when it feels like everything is complicated. And we rely on each other, and we rely on the Spirit, and the world notices. So I want to just take a moment just to reflect before we enter into communion. And Terry, I'm going to ask you to come on up. Just take a moment to reflect. What stood out to you from today? Whether it be worship or prayer, or the sermon. What is God saying to you today? Just take a minute to listen. Just take a deep breath in and out. God poured out God's own Spirit into a divided world. And somehow there was a gathering, a oneness, a togetherness, where our own loyalties may have become tangled. Untangle us. Where we confuse nation with kingdom. Help us to remember love. When we cling tightly to ideologies, more tightly than to Christ, help us to loosen our grip. Help us to love and see our neighbor. Help us to have devotion, teaching that frees us, community that includes everyone. Bread that is shared with soft hearts, and prayers of desperation that help us when it feels like there's nowhere through. Soften our hearts to be a people who love. Remove the stones within us. Help us to move together as one, belonging to each other. Help us to move towards love together. Help us to remember the table.